evening. I would like to reconvene our open session for the Mount Dabo Unified School District Board of Education meeting for April 10th, 2019. And I would ask that you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to now do roll call. Mr. Lawrence?
Here.
Ms. Mayo?
Here.
Ms. Cowan?
Here.
And Ms. Mason is joining us via teleconference phone call. She is located at... There she is. Thank you, Deborah. Main lobby of Residency in Marriott, Kansas City Airport, 10300 North Ambassador Drive, Kansas City, Missouri. In case you want to go join her, hop on a plane, go sit with her. So thank you very much, Deborah, or Ms. Mason, for being here. So first action is to report out on our closed session discussions on items. And item number 1 was negotiations. The board may discuss negotiations to provide direction to its representative regarding represented employees. And in that information, because we received information. 3.2 or 7.2 up there was the discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment of public employees. 2 cases. In case number 1, we gave staff direction, and in case number 2, we also gave staff direction. And 7.3 is anticipated litigation, conference with legal counsel. There were 2 cases actually, I think. In case number 1, we we gave staff direction, received information. In case number 2, we received information. So, is that right? 2? Yeah. Okay. Good. So that was our closed session. And then 7.4 was confidential student matter, student number 11-19, and we received information from staff on that as well. Okay, I'm going to make a change to our agenda, just a slight change, and I want to move up our next item, which is currently 12.1, our superintendent's report, and that will be followed by what's currently 11.1, which is board member reports. And then we'll go back to the order. We'll go on to our reports and information. So if we could start with our superintendent's. Oh, I'm sorry, Claire, I'm sorry. You're so far away from me. So this is our student representative tonight. So what was we already got the transcript here. What was it, Claire? McGinnis, okay. I'm not a beer drinker, so it wasn't sticking with me. So thank you very much for being with us tonight. So, okay, so Dr. Meyer, stage is yours.
Thank you. Welcome, Claire. Good to see you. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
It's not going to be that exciting. You're looking at me with such focus. Maybe say hello to each of the people in the audience personally. Start over here with Mr. Langley. Nice to see you, Mr. Langley. Mr. Ferrante, I look forward to your presentation tonight. I really do. I already read it. It's good. I want to see it again. We've got Linda right here. Hi, Linda. Anita. Now I'm making her blush. And we have Dawn. When Dawn was a principal, anytime she did something, we go, Dawn! on, because it always went well. And we have Mr. Riverview, who doesn't want me to say anything. I didn't think it would go all the way. Good to see you, Eric. Watch out, third row. Sam, thank you for being here, Sam. Nice gentleman there. Hello. Carmen, good to see you, Carmen. Margie. Aw. Jose. Jose always talks at our council meetings, so we put a hashtag Jose said, because he doesn't have it on the agenda. He just says, oh, one more thing. Hello, nice person. All right. You're lucky, third row. I was asked to do this briefly, and I'll just go ahead. We had spring break, so it's only been a short time since our last presentation, so we'll just look at a few of the quick highlights. We talk about this at every meeting, and we've been going from place to place, also talking about our local control accountability program. And this is what we start with, the idea that really this is a mission, this is a passion, this is a moral obligation to teach every student to the best of our ability and to prepare them for whatever secondary success they might need. So it's about opening doors, and it is about challenging every student. Looking forward, while we're challenging students, we have to do it in a creative way. And I love this. This has already happened since school started. And so in this picture here, at Mount Diablo Elementary here on the left, they're learning about plants, and they have some garden educators who come and talk about it. And you can see our students don't always interact with nature, you know, in their regular day-to-day. So when they do, it's a wonderful thing. And over here, we are getting familiar with vegetables, and they are our friends. And so I just love that picture. So getting very excited about that. We also had an AVID showcase, and so the AVID program has really been taking off. And here you can see some of our district leaders, and they're there getting ready to showing off the work that they do with AVID. And we will have 5 new schools, and they will be elementary schools. And so we're very excited about the K-12 AVID promise. CASEL, you know about that, Claire. What does CASEL stand for?
California, I don't know.
I should know too. It's been like 30 years for me, and I don't know what it was. Student leaders? I think it might even have an E in it, so it was a trick question. But you can see here we have YV and Concord represented, and did you go as well?
I did not.
But we have had all of our schools, I believe, were represented, and there they go and they learn different things, and they have different workshops, and really our students do that here as well amongst the schools, so I think we're way ahead of the game. Wanted to also share, I just found this delightful, and it's been a long time for me, but these are students that were coming back from camp. And so when they go, as you know, they're all excited, they're nervous, they're staying away for the first time. And I saw these pictures and I just thought, oh, that is just adorable. We had a lot of discussion here a couple years ago about kayaking and how it might be something we should worry about, but we've had a lot of great camp leaders and teachers who go on this trip to that's part of a Sea Lab camp and at Ayers, and so there they are. Water also tends to tire students out even more, so there they are. Uncomfortable, but they're sleeping. Our music festivals, this time of year we've had music festivals. This is at Northgate, and it has our feeder schools, elementary and middle, and the high, and they play together. And it's a wonderful time of year because you get to, they're smart enough, you know, they start with the opening act, Hot Cross Buns on a recorder, and they're pretty good at this by this time of the year. And then they work all the way up to classical works and contemporary music with the high schools, and Northgate in particular, so talented. Northgate won over the spring break the Monterey Jazz Festival Awards and took some great awards. And did you?
Keeping our record.
Keeping the record. They were first place with jazz band, and I think across the board third in overall.
Yes.
So pretty exciting stuff. So, and then we will be talking a little bit about the budget info. But last night we had a fantastic community advisory committee meeting with parents, and we went through our budget presentation, the one you will see tonight, and we're interested in the feedback and discussed some of the things that and shared it with them, and are continuing to go on our presentations. And then lastly, wanted to show you, we have one of our teachers will represent California in the nation as Teacher of the Year. And one thing that distinguishes her, if you could hold off for just a sec, one thing that distinguishes her is her risk-taking and her just fantastic teaching. So one strategy that she tried, and I asked permission, she said I could certainly share, is she's going nationwide to share how she's designed the makeup of her classroom. And so that's kind of a risk to get out there and videotape what your classroom looks like. And so here she is sharing what she's done. Rosie Reed.
A place where you would want to be and a place where students would want to be. So I'm going to take you on a little tour of my classroom before all the kids come in, okay? So here we have my door is decorated for Women's History Month. Extremists have shown what frightens them most is a girl with a book, and we have some women writers. When you come in the door, you'll see that I took everything off the wall recently. I wanted to kind of Marie Kondo it, and I put up, this wall is kind of more spare for a student who maybe gets overwhelmed by a lot of things. Oh, I always have Simone Biles up over the door because her motto is to do the best you can every day, and I love that. Here, this wall, we have these Holocaust butterflies are representing children who died in the Holocaust. We have some important, helpful posters for some of the skills that we work on in class. This wall is a lot more busy. It's a lot of posters with some inspiring messages. And I know that can be a lot for some kids, so that's kind of the back of the room actually, but they can look over there. Over here we'll see some panels that I got out of the trash. Those were made by a student, but they were in a dumpster, so I pulled them out. You can see that my class motto is here on the wall. What is your universe of obligation? And that really means what is your obligation to yourself, your family, your society, your world? What do you owe all of those groups? Here's the front of the room. And but there's really no front. You can see that the desks are in rows. I wish I could have tables, but you really can't fit that many tables for the number of kids that I have. But so I have all of the desks facing each other. And you can see that I also have a couch because I feel like every classroom should have a couch. It's a little more classroom management, but it's really nice to have a comfy place to come and escape. And you can see kids come and put stickers up for whatever they're interested in. So that's my classroom. Welcome everybody. I haven't quite finished. I've got to paint these over here. I want to paint these to be like whiteboard color. And I have the paint down here, but I haven't quite gotten to that. That's the last step in my renovation. Welcome to my class.
So what you heard is I got these extra dumpsters and I'm painting, but no, isn't that a beautiful room that you would really want to be in? So wanted to share that and show the creativity of how teachers pull it all together. And lastly, thank you. We've got a picture there, and that's my report. Thanks. That was a PBIS reward for Sequoia Elementary right there. They went to go get yogurt, ice cream. I think it was ice cream. That was it. This happened last night too, so I did want to share, I don't think it's a surprise, that at the end of June I will be going to take on a new challenge at a high school district, and I want to thank everyone in this room and outside of this room for everything you have taught me and I so appreciated getting to know each and every one of you. So I tend to like to say goodbye like the day I'm leaving, so that's why I'm taken somewhat by surprise. But I will be available for parties. And, so I thought I'd start early this time. So thank you to all of you. I really appreciate everything that I've learned from listening to each and every one of you. And thank you to the board and our students for what you bring. So thank you very much.
So I'm gonna pull rank and go first. I probably won't do this again, but just first and foremost, really simply, I did go to the Contra Costa School Board Association, had a session on LCAP specifically for board members, and so Mayo and I were both there, and I got your folder. It was informative, so and then there's a staff to remember or two who might be interested in this. So I'm not going to go on with any other activities for this meeting. I had a reporter asked to talk to me today, and wanted to know kind of a reaction to this news, and I asked her if it's okay. She just said I just sobbed uncontrollably, but she could print that. So I'm devastated. I love this woman. I think she's done so much for our district. It was a big factor in my decision to run for the school board. I had the unique opportunity to work for her for 2 years. When she first came to this district, I was still working in the district, and she was my boss. And I knew we had done it right. I didn't have anything to do with it. I had some input, but really the board's decision to hire her as. And so I worked in the district for 37 years. So I saw a lot of superintendents come and go. Saw a lot of different styles, and it just does not get any better than this. And so again, it was a factor for me. This is something I want to support. I've tried to do that, since I first came on this board. A lot of people know me, know that they're not a dime a dozen out there. It's just can be challenging to find someone that has all the skill sets that are needed. It's like, as you know, it's a complicated job. There's so many stakeholder groups you interact with and have to be accountable with. In her letter, if you haven't had a chance to read it, it's on our website. She underscores the relationships. That's really what it's mostly, been so important to her personally, because that's the kind of person she is, and that certainly resonates with me. Her extensive experience and her values, and I think the other thing is that now as a board member, I've had a chance to have more one-on-one conversations with her. Is her ability to really get people, is just sometimes mind-blowing to me personally. So it's something I really appreciate. And she's a very strong instructional leader. So some of the more creative ideas we've had in the last several years have come from her head, and her experience. And I also had the experience right out as soon as I became a board member, early in the experience at the CSBA conference, is standing there having a conversation, someone comes up and tries to recruit her right in front of me. That's my life. It's like, I was like, oh my gosh. So that told me something right there, that really helped me understand, that, as a group, as a board and all the other groups, that this is someone that we want to hang on to. We want to keep her here, and because will have no trouble, going somewhere else. I've shared this. I'm going through my own grieving process, but I'm getting there. I will get there, and I want nothing but the best for her personally. I get it, why this is a new, exciting opportunity for her, on a personal level and professional level. So I can't be angry at her. It's not possible, but I wish her nothing but the best. And we're going to be saying this, we have a lot more time, but I just didn't feel like we couldn't, talk about it a little bit tonight. We're having some, there's some challenges, right? And I think the other thing, I think I mentioned this at previous meeting, I just finished reading Michelle Obama's book, which is a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. But my takeaway from her, even before I read the book, is when they go low, we go high. That's such a good thing, and I try to keep that in my head. I'm not always successful at it. It can be hard to do that, but I think that epitomizes what Dr. Meyer's way of being in the world too. So I just want to add to, so it's time we can pause. We need as a board to pause now, and we have a job to do now to find our next superintendent. And I think it's a chance to kind of reflect, individually and collectively, what we learned, from our experience with Dr. Meyer. I've, since I found out however many days ago, I've really reflected on my own behaviors and, so that going into this next experience that we learn from that, and that we can be the best that we can be for choosing, a next superintendent, but also being really, truly a solid team with the superintendent. And to figure out, again, I think it's worth it for each of us individually to think about this, but, how can we move forward in a very constructive way? One of the issues I don't think can be said enough is one of our major challenges in this work is that we're actually all victims of a society that hasn't figured out the importance of ensuring public education system, which is the backbone of our democracy, figure out how it can be resourced in a way to achieve excellence for all students. That's a joint problem that we have, not just in California, but across the country. So I think, how recognizing that and how we respond to that, I think is also a good reflection. Anyway, again, I just wanted to set the stage that as we go forward, this is a big challenge for all of us, that we be the best that we can be collectively to do the right process, do a transparent, complete process to find someone that can maybe come close to what we've had with Dr. Meyer. So a lot of people have been asking, so I'm going to take this opportunity to share that we, in the interest of time, I'm grateful that she's here till June. There's still not a lot of time, and so Ms. Mayo and I are going to put together a list of search firms that the board can consider. We're looking at quickly finding some dates that we can come together and have them come and present proposals in person to us, if that's possible, to get us moving so we can at least make that decision as a board to get that process started. So I'm going to ask Ms. Maher is going to help us, through the email process of finding dates that, you certainly can weigh in on your preferences of time of day, nights, whatever. So, but I'm hoping we can do this pretty quickly. And then, I'll just say for myself, my expectation is that we will, some of you have been through this process more than once, that it will, be inclusive and, that will be part of what we'll be looking for with the firm to make sure that we're comfortable with the overall process so that it creates opportunities for input from a number of stakeholders groups. So, let's see what else I must say. Yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that. But again, I'm very grateful that we have Dr. Meyer till summer. Again, we'll have more opportunity to celebrate her great work here in our district. And as sad as I am, I want her to know she has my undying support and appreciation. Mr. Lawrence?
I know Dr. Meyer hates having the spotlight on her, which is why I'm so looking forward to every single board meeting, making sure to spotlight her through June. And so I will parcel these out over the next few board meetings, and hopefully we can have a band come in and all sorts of things. jazz bands. Claire knows a good one she can recommend. And so I know there will be more chances, but I'll just simply say that when I reflect on my time on the board, the single decision I'm proudest of is the fact that I was part of the board along with Mrs. Mayo, where we selected Dr. Meyer. And I think that was the single biggest decision that I've made during my time on the board, and it's the one I'm proudest of. So thank you.
Ms. Mason, would you like to do a report? Do you want to share? Yeah, go ahead. We got you mic'd up. You want to share your report?
Okay, I would just like to say that I have really enjoyed working with Dr. Meyer. I feel like I've learned a lot from her. Hopefully she's learned a thing or two from me, and I fully expect that she and I will stay in touch. And as far as the only other thing I was going to say this evening was thanking the staff at Riverview, particularly the office manager, Kathy, for helping with our science week last week. We actually partnered with the county library. The folks that were there at the school were always very accommodating to make sure we had everything that we need.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Mayo?
So last night at the CAC meeting, I had to make the announcement because she wouldn't do it. So I shared many things, and I too have sincerely appreciated Dr. Meyer's presence, and I don't mean that in the past tense. I know you're going to be here through June 30th, and you will also be with us as we're making decisions, because you've shown us different ways to approach problems and how to seek solutions. So that's a valuable attribute. I think what also has been important is that you've been able to engage our community with integrity and confidence, regardless of the audience, and that's been greatly appreciated across the district. And that's one of your valuable assets. Last night I shared that it was a couple of people that my idea of a great Monday night meeting this last Monday night was to go sit in that audience with a big white handkerchief and just sob out loud while their board was making the decision. I didn't do that, but it was fun thinking about it. But I did share last night that maybe we could kidnap her dogs so she doesn't leave the district, because she wouldn't go without her special friends, I don't think. But that wouldn't be fair either. So we wish her the best, and we know that you will do great things, and we'll be so very proud of you as you accomplish those great things. I did have some other information, but I'll wait till Sharice is finished.
My turn. All right. I just want to say thank you for everything that you do, that you've done for our students, for our community. You are one of the reasons why I wanted to run for school board, to be able to have the opportunity to work with you and support you, and I get a few months of you still. But you know, you've been an inspiration to me and to so many others. And I echo what everyone else has said, with your ability to build relationships with the community and all of our partners, and really all for that singular goal of improving opportunities for all students. So thank you.
I just had a few things to report. I wanted to thank Mrs. Durkee and Dorothy Weisenberger for attending the CSBA presentation on the board member role in the LCAP process. We had, even though it was a small group that attended, I think we had a lot of information, and I'll share the PowerPoint when it's available. At last night's CAC meeting, Dr. Aguili provided some insight to special education enrollment throughout California. So I hope that I took notes accurately, and you can correct me if I'm incorrect. Now, 12.45% of the enrollment in California is are special education students, and this number is increasing. And autism accounts for a great part of the increase throughout California. School district funding is based on the general education enrollment in California. So when enrollment declines, regardless of whether it is declining because of declining birth rate, charter school attraction, or population resettlement in our communities, local school district budgets are affected, and in turn, so are special education programs. In California in 2015-16, special education students numbered more than those in 27 states across the nation. The state of California contributed $14.95 billion to special education, I believe it was this last year. The federal government contributed $13.4 billion to all student programs, Gen Ed and Special Ed, in California. So we are paying the lion's share for our students in special education, when the federal government committed to fund special education at 40%. Currently, they're only funding special education at 8%. The CAC has a lobby day coming up on May 1st, and they will be meeting to look at the different legislation that has been proposed in Sacramento. And one of the bills they are looking at is AB 428 Medina, which would provide another $100 in funding for special education. I hope that you'll take the time to review this bill and consult with CAC members. They will be meeting on April 17th to go through all of the bills that they will be lobbying on Lobby Day on May 1st, and ask them for their opinion and details, along with studying the bill yourself and then making a decision and contacting your legislator. It's going to be very important for our students, not only in Mount Diablo School District, but also across the state. On April 30th at 5:15, the Contra Costa County School Boards Association will be having a legislative update as well as an election meeting. You should have all received an invitation to that event. It'll be at the DBC Norseman restaurant, and if members of the public are interested in attending, please contact me, because we always have a good legislative report. We'll have Dennis Myers from CSBA in Sacramento present, as well as Sarah Butler from the County Office of County School Board will present too. And then on May 4th, from 5 to 7 at Zio Fredo's, the California School Boards Association East Bay PAC will hold a fundraiser. And this is in an effort to promote interest in the full and fair funding campaign for education that may be on the ballot in 2020. So please consider attending. Thank you. Okay, Claire, you want to give your report?
Okay. Good evening, President Durkee, board members, Superintendent Dr. Meyer, members of Superintendent's Council, and members of the audience. My name is Claire McGinnis, and I'm the ASB president at Northgate High School. So at Senior Banquet, our senior class officers announced our senior ball venue. So on Saturday, May 25th, ball will be hosted at the Exploratorium on the pier in San Francisco. In addition to being able to explore the interactive museum, there will be a fireworks show over the pier. It's going to be about 5 minutes, and ticket sales begin today. And it's $90 this week, and it'll go up every week after that. And it's available only on the ASB web store. And now we have a cool little thing, and you can only pay online, but you can only pay and have your purchase processed if you download the waiver, medical release form. And then yesterday, Tuesday, April 9th, we had our all-school consent assembly. This was the first one we had, and it was inspired by De La Salle High School. And it was in light of present movements, our administration took these steps towards raising awareness about consent. And so for our freshman class, Piedmont High's production workshop came and acted out the victims' experiences. And I had multiple teachers come and do a debrief, and they were just, wow. All the freshmen were just in complete shock, and I think they've been able to process it and reshape their perceptions of consent in a positive way and a more proactive way. And then for the upperclassmen, the DA's office came and gave a presentation to the sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and then it rotated so we didn't have everyone in the gym all at once. And it was very informative and clarifying from the legal perspective of consent, and they gave very helpful hints of what to do if it happens to you and how, and just defining what consent actually means from a legal perspective. And then senior projects are well underway, even though we just got back from spring break. I believe our final drafts for senior papers, which is 10 pages, will be due next week. And then this Saturday, April 13th, we are hosting our 3rd annual color run. This run starts at 9 a.m. and in addition to combining the color run, we will also be doing our spring egg hunt for the kids. So they can run the little lap around the track and then they can go do a fun egg hunt while the adults finish the race. And then in addition, there will be smoothies, coffees, pastries, a tie-dye station, and music. Tickets are $25 and are available at the ASB web store only. And there's also Spirit Days like this week to raise awareness and to promote. So today was meme day. And so we had a lot of kids just dressing up in fun things like internet videos. And then tomorrow's Twin Day, and so the entire leadership class are all wearing our leadership polos and then our dark blue jeans. And then on April 27th, we're hosting a Donate to Dump. We'll have 3 dumpsters offering electronic disposing, paper shredding, and just dumping anything you have around the house. And in addition, we'll offer a service for pickups at an additional fee. And then leadership is in the midst of our interview process for next year. Both sports leadership and ASB leadership will be interviewing beginning next week. Mr. Escobar, our resident motivational speaker and sports coach, is hosting Life Hacks, where he will bring various decorated business people to train students on how to conduct an interview and construct their resume. And then this will be April 15th and April 17th after school. And this will also include interview training, so they'll do mock interviews and then be coached on that. And then Wellness Week is next Thursday, April 18th. We have a motivational speaker as well. His name is Patrick. It starts with an S. It's something German. I cannot pronounce it for the life of me. And then on April 19th, we'll be hosting Walnut Acres Elementary Student Council for a period for the day. And then we'll show them the ropes, and also we'll be reviewing our joint event, which will be following in the evening at Walnut Acres. So Parents' Night Out is April 19th at Walnut Acres in the MUR. It's $20 with pizza and water provided, and then condiments that will be sold by the Student Council to benefit Walnut Acres. There'll be fun, games, crafts, and a movie, Moana, will be showcased. And it's from 5 to 9, and tickets are available on the Northgate ASB web store. And then we also have a link to our medical waiver and then our spreadsheet, which includes who will be checking out the kid, what is your driver's license, so we have all that, so parents can really feel assured that we're on top of that and that their kid will not be exiting without us knowing. And I believe that's it. It's a great day to be a Bronco.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so we are now going to go back to our reports and information. I have totally confused everybody. And we'll do point 1, Mount Avenue High School District budget presentation. Dr. Meyer?
Yes, I'm going to co-present with Rose Ramos, and we'll go, there's some things that you've seen here before, so we'll go through rather quickly, and then we will be available for questions. So I know some questions came up with past presentations, and so just to share, I'll just open it up. We want to emphasize that the budget is an identification of what we value. And so it's important to make sure that we are being very conscious with our decisions and thoughtful about where we place the resources that we have. And so to go forward, something that we've shared is that we are nearly 90% of our budget is in people, but it's important to remember that we are a people business. So all of the services that we supply are through the talented people within our district. And with that, they need something to work with, so the materials, and then certainly in an environment that is comfortable and welcoming, so facilities. And some of the things that we've looked at, and this has been a presentation we've shared across the district, probably some of you have seen it before. The services, including teaching, counseling, nursing, and library services, and some of the things that we have put into our budget, including visual and performing arts, athletics and sports, and after-school programs that comes with a specialized budget, and college and career preparation. And so here you can see pictures of some of the things that we do. Culinary arts, you can see pathways, you can see athletics, and you can see some other arts for elementary. So I'm going to go ahead and ask if Rose could briefly share some information about the COLA.
And if I could get, sorry.
I can do it for you too if you like. Thank you.
All right, so these are the budget considerations, some of the risks that we've already talked about before regarding the COLA and the uncertainty for funding for K-12. We know we're always, we have to wait and see how the state economy looks and what that means for K-12. So you've seen this slide before, but I want to get to some that apply directly to Mount Diablo. You've seen this one before, but this one again, we want to leave this up because it's important. It does tell the story in a really quick and simple way about statutory COLA. That's the increase in revenue we do get from the state. Then we just match that up against the California CPI Consumer Price Index. This is the movement up of the cost of doing business, and we've seen this before, just so you can see the difference, that obviously our COLA is not enough to support the cost of the increased cost in doing business. That's not the only cost increase that we see. This is the other one that's really important. Not too well in terms of the presentation, it's kind of dark, but this is the statewide average, and this is taken from the school services presentation. You've seen that, and you do see the increase in LCFF that it's supposed to be paying for the increase of the cost of doing business as far as the increase in step and column, PERS, STIRS, and some of the special ed contribution. The question mark is there because obviously it's a statewide average and it varies from district to district. However, here this graph is showing that pretty much the increase in LCFF does support those increases in some cases, but in the out years it does not. Now that's statewide average. This is us. We've applied this to our actual experience, and you'll see that it's quite different. The main reason is because we don't get concentration funds. We mostly get we get supplemental above the base. So for us, it's quite dramatically different. You'll see that starting from the first year that LCFF was fully funded, that increase was not even enough to sustain the increase of our special ed contribution, our PERS and STIRS, and then our step and column. And that's not even touching, of course, Consumer Price Index. So it's very difficult. And how do we do it? How are we balancing our budget? Well, we've talked about this before. One-time sources, not the best way to do it, but everyone is doing that, and we rely on the state to supply those to us. And also our ending fund balance, which is one reason we hang on to that as tightly as we do, because we want to make sure that we have enough to support our out years and to make our economic reserve for the out years as well. So that we could stay in control of our district. So this is a new slide, and so we'll leave that up there, and of course this information will be posted to the website.
And so, Rose, I think this is an incredibly important slide, and just, if we look at, I'll use somewhat round numbers, but the 192 total in 18-19 compared to the 354, so if we call that a difference of 100, roughly 150, and then we multiply that by 30,000 students, and so suddenly, if my math is correct, we're looking at $4.5 million.
Correct.
And that's part of why we're seeing, even though there's more funding, that it's more difficult for us to, why we've been at a deficit, because the costs have gone up just in that alone by $4.5 million. That has outstripped the funding increase. Is that an accurate way of thinking about it?
That's correct, and that's the primary reason why we have this ongoing deficit, because we've heard that comment before. What are you doing to control that? These are uncontrollable costs. We have no control over pension and step and column. and of course our special ed costs. Even in our supplies, that makes up a very small portion of our budget, and you'll see as we get into other slides that the discretionary part of the supplies is very small. So that's not the answer either. Yeah, this is a structural problem at the state.
And could you briefly, because I'm not sure everyone in the audience is familiar, could you briefly explain both step and column as well as what the special ed contribution is mandated?
Absolutely. Step and column is, we have our salary schedules all posted on the website, of course, and so our staff, for every year that they're here, those that, are on the regular salary schedule staffs, they move. So the column represents, of course, the columns, and the steps are, they represent also increments going down. So the steps apply mostly to positions that are a higher grade. For example, you might start off as an assistant director and you might move up to a director, so you're increasing in step. And then as you accumulate years, you move across the columns over to the right, and so that's step and column, just a short. And then your special ed contribution, this is the, and I think it was a really good information that Trustee Mayo shared earlier about the special ed funding, the lack of funding for special ed. So the contribution is the difference that districts have to contribute to our special ed costs to provide services for our special ed population, because the funding is just not enough. And it is hard to control. Our special ed department is doing a really nice job of trying to control those costs. But as you know, those are mandated by our student population and their needs, and so sometimes they're just not as easy to control. So that's what that represents. Pretty much define that. That's coming from the general fund, that special ed contribution. So very little from our federal sources and our state sources to support those costs. So yep, so that'll be up on our website. And of course, the out years are subject to change depending on what actually does happen. And then this has been also another very popular topic, the discussion of carryover and what is it and how much do we have and why don't we use that. Well, as you can see, this is our carryover, our last year's carryover. And it looks very different from the prior years because we had a lot of LCFF in the very early years, but we used that appropriately. We used it to support salary improvements, and we used it for program investments and counseling, and we did some very wonderful things with that money. And so now time's passed and that money is pretty much gone. So, and this is, and it should be. So this is a representation of our carryover summarized from prior year 17-18 into this new year. And you'll see our unrestricted is very small. It's 2.8 million, and then I'll show you the details shortly. So the majority of it is in the restricted side at 23 million. So here is the unrestricted, the 2.8 million, and the majority is our site discretionary. This belongs to our school sites. This is their money left over from the prior year for either planned projects that they're going to do this year, and it's all part of their school site budgets and what they plan for their coming year. So that's not money necessarily that we would say let's pull that money back, because they do have plans to support their own school activities with that. And then the operating expenses, these are our department budgets. And again, they don't get this money back. This goes back to the ending fund balance to help support that deficit and to minimize that, but 121,000 is not a whole lot either. The governor's one time, and again, this is discretionary money, and this stays in the general fund and the unrestricted side and the ending fund balance. The one that we really don't have, it's not restricted, but we would not use that for the ending fund balance, is the union professional development funds, and that's a contribution that the district makes towards these. And if you need more details, our staff, Mika, is here and she can share more on that. And then our grade span for 9-12, there's only a little bit of money there, 23,000, and that's reserved there. And then just a small amount in our LCFF supplemental, about $1 million. So not a whole lot on the unrestricted side in the carryover. And here is the restricted. The majority of that, you'll see the list is pretty long, but let me get to my summarized list. Is some of them, the titles are not really, don't clearly define the purpose. And we put in parentheses, for example, the Clean Energy Jobs Act, that's Prop 39, that's facilities. And then going down, 3 from the bottom is routine restricted, 4.8, and then health and safety also for facilities, 3.6. So those 3 categories alone account for $15 million, and that's facilities, and they are restricted to facilities. So we don't have flexibility there either to pull those monies and do something different. And then the rest are all program, and those are all defined. And then local donations, there was questions about that, and that's only $1 million, but nonetheless, here are the details on that. You have athletics, parent donation, a couple of local grants, and again, we're not at liberty to pull that money to use it any which way. So that's carryover. Any questions on the carryover? And then these are slides you've seen before, and I think I will turn it over back to Dr. Meyer.
So these are slides that you've seen before, but we will have them there for your reference. And Mount Diablo, kind of small and hard to see, but this is from 17-18, so that's significant. There have been some changes to other districts, but you can go Fremont, San Jose, San Ramon, and then Mount Diablo Unified. So we are 4th in, and you can see the first column represents counselors, the second nurses, and this is the ratio of the employee to a student. And then in gray, the administrators, and then the gold, the psychologists, and then the purple, indigo, speech language hearing specialists, and then other. And we've looked at our other, and we have quite a few others that aren't looked at and tracked statewide, because we have a lot of unique positions. So we're still looking at that, but for the purposes of our discussion, I think it's important to see. And so then after Mount Diablo, we have West Contra Costa, Antioch, Pittsburgh, Martinez, and then lastly, Oakland. Looking at the funding, so you kind of saw some of the same school districts, and you saw the ratios. You get a sense here, as Rose mentioned, the funding is different, and so Oakland Unified, for example, does have concentration funds. And then next, West Contra Costa Unified, and they do as well. Pittsburgh Unified has concentration money as well. And then Mount Diablo, we have primarily supplemental, so we still do get some funding for our unduplicated students. And then San Ramon there, and then Martinez. So you can kind of get a sense to see LCFF in the base color. The next tier is the federal monies, and then other state funds. We have been fortunate to receive quite a few grants that really support many of our programs, and so we're very happy with that. And then, as also mentioned, local funding. So you saw that on the other slide. Looking at, and this is 17-18 again, compensation. There have been a lot of changes in the county, and so some of these districts are still in the middle of looking at their compensation for this year, but some have completed that process. But you can see average teacher compensation. It's relatively the same across the board, but Oakland, you can see, is considerably lower. And so that really kind of is counter to the fact that they have considerably higher per pupil funding. And that really is the product of the fact that they had so many charters that were not located in one concentrated area like our wonderful charters are. The whole front row here I have to pay attention to. But it was kind of hit across in many different ways, and they come in varied forms. And some are very strong and some are not. But that being said, you need to reduce the staff when you reduce the number of students, and so that didn't occur in Oakland to the degree it needed to. Looking at size, I want to first point out that with this graphic that the top line is 24, so it's not quite as dramatic as it might look, but I'll go through these quickly. You've seen them before, but this is 17-18 once again, and so in our district we have used the state funding. They fund us to maintain an average 24-to-1 in K-3, and so as a result, we receive that funding. If we do not maintain that average at every school, we are at risk of losing that supplementary funding for K-3 reduction. So the other districts shown here, they all also take part in that, and that's why you can see we're all under 24-1 in this case. But it is an average K3, so some will be higher. So you can see Mount Diablo there on the left. Then over here, when you get to first grade, second from the right. And then this is second. There we are on the left again. Then 3, we are, where are we? In the middle. And then when we get to 4, I think it's significant because we no longer receive that supplementary funding. Now, this is 17-18 as mentioned. And so there it was lower. I believe it has gone up, but not too much, but it is 4th grade. And then 5th grade, there we are as well on the left. So it was a conscious effort when we had governor's funding to put that into to classrooms where we could. One thing of note, in the many different groups I've spoken to about this, inevitably there's someone that goes, oh, wait a minute, my class size is 30, what's going on? And it is because it is an average, and it is also because when you get past 3rd grade, it's an average across the district. And so we have some schools that have considerably smaller class sizes than other schools within the district.
That would typically be our Title I schools.
Yes, typically, yes. But there are some that are bigger, but yes, for the most part. So here you see, now when we do secondary, we broke it out district-wide by subject. And this is English Language Arts. And we're there second from the right in class size. And then this is history, social science, second from the right. And then math, which has been an area of focus, and we do know some schools within their plans looked to purposefully reduce their math class size. And then science, second from the right again. Seems like it's always Oakland, Mount Diablo. And then just to share with you some of the things that we've been doing, we do recommend going to our webpage. We have all of the presentations that we have had, and we've been sharing reports and working with schools on budget development. And then also we have an online survey that is available, and so you can go on there and share your priorities via that online survey. And so that concludes the budget presentation. Thank you.
Very much. Okay, so we'll move on to on 8.2 is the annual report by the 2010 Measure C Citizen Bond Oversight Committee. Mr. Bronte.
Good evening. 6 years, huh? I remember only one interview panel. I don't remember how many I sat on, but I only remember one, and that was yours. And I remember saying, we want that breath of fresh air. Thank you for proving me right. So this is, oh, thank you. Which one do I push? The one to the right. Yep. Cool. Okay, so this is the FY 17-18 presentation for the 2010 Measure C. This is required by law under Prop 39, not the same Prop 39 that Rose mentioned, different Prop 39. Confusing. So there's a requirement by law. The chair of the Oversight Committee gets selected for doing this. I don't quite understand why. Again, back to 2010, was when the Bond Oversight Committee was formed up. There's 7 mandated chairs. They're still filled. We're dropping in attendance, but we're still maintaining our minimums. We have a meeting once per quarter where we get updated by M&O and the Measure C people. And the website's there where you can find most, if not all, of our previous minutes and these wonderful presentations. So we have our quarterly reports. We're still asking for the solar report. We're not giving up on that. Project status, and again, the program financials. We were audited, as is required by law. Yeah, that discharge duties responsibly. Some of the people on that board, I don't know. It just we are required to visit sites that are under work, and to the best of my knowledge, we have all done at least one visit during the year. The audit report came back clean again this year, which is always a big plus. We look forward to the clean audits. We don't want any with exceptions. This is a little small, but these are the time sequences for all of the groups that we have worked on up to 2018. We've done a lot of modernization. The two that are started have been put on hold. Window repair came in a whole lot higher than anybody had expected. And food services is under discussion by you people. So we're waiting on that. So the bond sales, you can see the numbers up there. The interest, we get to use that, I hope. I hope that's not going into the general fund.
Interest follows the principal.
Good. PG rebates for the HVAC equipment, you can see the $351 million of total funding available. Unfortunately, it's almost all spent. These are the expenditures as of June 30 of 18, which was the end of the fiscal year. 288.8, basically 289 million in contracts and in-house labor costs, 2.6 million in contract changes. That is an amazing number. That is looking at a little under 1%, which is very, very rare. Normally you're looking at numbers around 8-9%, and the Measure C staff has done a phenomenal job in keeping that down. That's great. Solar is all done, has been for quite some time. HVAC, that's all done. Modernization, that will never be done. I mean, we've spent our money, but in all reality, that will never ever be done, because you buy a computer today and tomorrow it's out of date. So that's just life. We spent basically $10 million on technology. The irrigation program, again, was one of those projects that came in way, way over budget. So we took the money out of that way back in the beginning and put it back into the general bond funding to be visited later, which was good because a lot of the water usage on the football fields is no longer required because it's all artificial turf. So there's a plus side on that one. We are conserving water. The enhancements are basically there, they're done. Middle school general science, we've got that under control. I think that's basically done. I think the security program still has some updates to do, but we're at 9.5 million. The general program, for that, again, for the fiscal year, we looked at 18, rounded up to 0.6 million, and we met that. This is the graph that I find important. This lets us see where we are as opposed to where we thought we would be and how much money we have. So I guess that's a red line, shows us the actual cost. The blue line was our projected cost. The fact that our actual costs are coming in under the projected cost is a big plus for the district. That means we have more money to spend on projects, which is what we want to do. And when we hit the magenta line up on top, we're done. We're out of money. And because this is for FY 17-18, it doesn't have the expenditures. From 18-19, that red line is a lot higher right now. Here's the proposed for Series F and G bonds. We're encroaching a little bit into FY 18-19, but a lot of this came around in FY 17-18. It was approved by the board in FY 18. These numbers add up in a hurry. $1 million just doesn't go anywhere in a district of this size. Again, we feel that this is just a continuation. I asked M&O and Ms. Ramos what we were doing with the Clayton Valley Charter money, since we're still embroiled in a lawsuit with them and they're not getting anything done. The money has been set aside, so once they get off the dime and settle the lawsuit, they will get their money, they will get their updates as expected. They're not going to lose out, provided they decide to settle the lawsuit. Again, more modernizations, and we're at the 18.7, which is pretty much going to take care of a whole lot of the 2010 bond. Of that 46 million remaining to be appropriated, that's really not remaining to be appropriated, because there's another item on the agenda later tonight that's going to eat that all up. So don't count on that sticking around past tonight. The one thing that has not been shown is project management costs. Under Measure A, we had a project management firm. At the end of Measure A, I got the financials and I looked at what that project management firm cost the bond. It was just under 14%. 14% of $92 million is a big chunk of change. 14% of $350 million is in the neighborhood of $42 million. Right now, we're sitting at under 4% because we're doing it in-house. Under 4%, that's pretty good, because now, instead of spending $42 million on a project management firm, we're only sitting somewhere around $10, $11 million. That means that other $30 million is going into projects, which is what we need to keep in mind in looking at Measure J. So we have our organizational meeting coming up soon. Hopefully they will get somebody a little more sane to be the chair. And they can do the next presentation. Any questions? Hearing no questions, thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to mention, I know that Mr. Ferrante mentioned this before, that this then, the next step is Measure J with the advisory committee for that. And I did see, I want to say thank you to Ms. Ramos and whoever else was responsible. I see that that application is live on the Mount Diablo District website. So for people who are interested to apply to be on the oversight committee for that, please do. We need a wide representation.
Catch up here.
While you're doing that, if I could ask a question, is the board appointing each board member appointing a representative to the Measure J committee? No.
We haven't in the past. There's qualifications. They have to be a senior citizen. There has to be somebody from the Taxpayers Association. There should be someone from business. There should be a community member. There's, I believe, 6 or 7 categories that we need to meet. So it's been by application.
And And those are listed on the application. When people click on it, they can see what the different categories are, as well as it looks like we're looking for a resident of each of the different regions too, of Concord, Walnut Creek.
Can I do that?
Yeah.
We are not limited to the 7.
Right, one
We
more.
can go above that number, and in years past, we always have, but we have to have that there 7. That's required by Prop 39. There have been times when we have as many as 12, 13, and that's better. You get more input. So the others are, I want to say large members, but no, they're members at large.
Members at large. And I see a student on here as well, so spread the word to students.
Yeah, we haven't had that in the past.
Okay, we have not had that, okay.
No.
But that is on here, and it's, looks like a pretty basic application to apply, so, that would be good to see.
Thank you very much, thank you. Okay, for our next item is 9.1, California Adult Education Week, April 8th through the 12th. Well, I'm not going to read the whole thing, sorry, but I think, so we have our 2 wonderful adult educator leaders here, Victoria Abate and Jonathan Roslin. Thank you for being here. I encourage people to read the resolution, particularly if you're not as familiar about the adult education program for Mount Airy Unified School District. It helps give you an idea of the depth and breadth of the services that are provided to our community. I had the opportunity to join adult educators in Sacramento the last 2 days to talk to really important people who decide policy. Let me make it clear, adult education funding is totally separate from K-12 funding. It's not LCAP. It's separate funding, but it was very much threatened several years ago when I was actually still working, and we feel happy that we were able to push back and make sure people understand the critical role that adult education plays in a K-12 district. Because we're talking about a comprehensive, holistic approach to serving our families in our communities. I always like to talk about the Family Literacy Centers as a great example for someone who might be an immigrant who is not really comfortable going to school or not, expanding their own education, will get comfortable potentially going to their child's school in their neighborhood as a first step. And we have English as second language classes in those schools, curriculum of what's called family literacy, because what's connected to that is actually in many cases actual preschool program in partnership with First 5. So both the child, the very young child, is learning alongside their parents who's learning their own English skills, and a new thing that is starting to get some awareness is what we call immigrant integration. All the things that really ESL teachers do very naturally is to help people figure out how to access resources and how to integrate, get jobs, etc. So in my heart, it's a very important part of what Mount Airy Unified is all about. Again, we're supporting our children and families together. Again, in Sacramento, the message was thank goodness for they're still there. They're still able to provide these services as part of K-12, but the funding is nowhere near what it was in 2008 and before. So just like K-12 funding, so it's a similar kind of issue. But anyway, I just want to take this opportunity to thank our leaders in adult ed. This new way of being funded, and LCAP came into being. Now there's our local control funding formula. What adult education across the state has to go through now to get their dollars is, I don't know what the right word is, but it's almost criminal in my view. The load, I was involved in the planning phase of it, and then I retired, and what they are now dealing with is mind-blowing, in terms of the number of meetings and the collaborate. It's really, shouldn't be that hard, really, truthfully. So anyway, so I want to thank them both who are here. Do we have anybody else here from
No, I'm sorry that we don't have students here. Many of our students, as you just pointed out, are families, and so they are attending their children.
Yeah, absolutely. They, in Sacramento, we, I was telling Victoria up there, it's like if you ever forget, if I ever lose sight, which I can't imagine I would, of why this is so important. We had, I think, 3 or 4 students who spoke to legislators or their staff, and, you can't, it's very diploma went on to college. In many cases, one gentleman went to community college, and then their nursing program, and then went on and got his RN, who's in a four-year university, and is now working in a very important position at John Muir Health in Concord as a charge nurse. So it's a great success stories, but they are so appreciative of that first step was there for them. So anyway.
So I want to also thank President Durkee for her championing and service and support of adult ed, as well as our representatives here tonight. And I would say some of the most impactful presentations that I've ever seen as a board member have been from some of our adult ed students. And I put in a request. I would love to, it's been a while since we've had that, and I think that would be fantastic. And when I first was running for the board, I sat down with then board member Dick Allen, and he told me that it educated me so much on the role of adult ed, and helped me recognize that it's truly one of the jewels of our school district. And the way he summarized it for me was that he said, if you teach a mother how to read, you've taught that whole family how to read. And I think that's a very powerful idea, and one that we've seen played out and certainly reflected in Mrs. Durkee's comments. So, and I know you weren't going to read the entire thing, but if I could, I would just like to perhaps share the last sentence of it, which says, "Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Mount Diablo Unified School District strongly urges the Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and the California Legislature to increase adult education funding to ensure increased access to programs and services to the most in need and as yet unreached members of our great state."
Madam President, I would move that the board approve the California Adult Education Week resolution as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. We'll call for the vote. And actually, Thursday, right? Tomorrow is, so one of the big program areas is Career Technical Education Center, which is highly accredited, it's probably the most accredited program. A lot of allied health careers, and we certainly want to make sure, high school students are aware of that's another option for them. It's like, I always call those programs just get in, get out, get a job, because of the accreditation process, they have to make sure people get jobs, and they do, and it's a really great program. So they're having an open house tomorrow. I unfortunately am not going to be able to go, but from 4 to 7, is that right?
2 until 6. 2 till 6.
Okay.
It's both an open house and also a health fair. So people who are getting their blood pressure checked, it's open up to the whole community. And it's at Loma Vista Adult Center tomorrow between 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock. And our students, adult ed students, will be the ones doing a lot of the services to potential future students and to members of the community at large. So anyone who can attend, we definitely invite you to attend. And thank you for your support. We definitely want to thank Dr. Meyer as well. You've been tremendously supportive of our adult ed services, and we really appreciate all that you've done. So thank you.
Okay. Oh, yeah, voicebook, that's right. Okay, Mr. Lawrence.
Aye.
Ms. Mason.
Aye.
Ms. Mayo.
Aye.
Ms. Town.
Aye.
And Ms. Durkee votes aye. That passes. Okay, I'm explaining why let's get my coach over here. We have to do voiceover because Ms. Mason doesn't have access to the electronic voting system, and she's on the phone, so. Again, it's still time, you can go hang out with her if you're going to go to Kansas. Okay. So that passes 5-0-0. Okay, so we are now at public comment, right? Right. The public may address the board regarding any item within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education of the Mount Diablo Unified School District that is not on this agenda. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers, or the 3-minute limit may be shortened. If there are multiple speakers on any one subject, the public comment period may be moved to the end of the meeting. Speakers not allowed to yield their time. So we try to say this every time, for those of you who haven't been here before, this can feel a little awkward. By the Brown Act rules, our role is to listen and carefully to what people are saying when they're coming up. We appreciate people coming and making public comment, but we cannot respond. We might be, depending, ask a clarifying question. We might, refer you to our superintendent. That it, sometimes people come and they're asking questions and they're very passionately saying something and we're just nodding and listening, and it can feel uncomfortable. So don't take any disrespect from that. We're just doing our job, but we are listening carefully. So we're going to start with Thomas Heller.
I have a packet for you.
Okay.
So, good evening, Dr. Meyer. First of all, congratulations on your new position. I wish you the best. President Durkee, distinguished members of the board, and those in the audience. My name is Tom Heller. I am a teacher at Mount Diablo High School. I am also the girls softball coach at the high school as well. One of my roles as the coach is to make sure that the students stay safe and that they have a memorable experience participating in athletics. I believe that athletics is an integral part of that educational experience, which brings me to why I am here. I need to address you on the disappointing conditions of our softball field. If you look at pages 1 through 17, I apologize for the lack of clarity in the pictures. President Durkee, you've actually got the best pictures of all. But our dugouts have large cracks in the concrete, which can present tripping hazards. Our bleachers are probably relics from the 1950s. They're made of wood, they're not smooth, the posts are bent, they are not safe to be used at all. The wood that surrounds the field is warped, it is rotting, and it is dangerous. Our batting cages have been undermined by gopher activity. Netting and safety structures have not been maintained properly. Essential parts of the field are missing, specifically our right field foul post, which is no longer there, which may constitute an illegal field. The second area I need to address is the apparent lack of Americans with Disability access. The ADA says that it prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in several areas, including employment, transportation, public accommodations, communications, and access to state and local government programs and services. There is currently no handicap parking. There are no paved walkways. There is no handicap seating. My mother, who supports us, I will not let her go to our events because she uses a walker, and I cannot risk her safety to come to our events. The next area that I'm very concerned about are some apparent Title IX violations. Title IX says that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, that's referring to female athletics, be excluded from participation in or be denied the benefits of discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. I have pictures, pages 21 through 23, which I pulled from Google Maps of our high schools in the district. Our softball field is located a quarter-mile away from locker rooms and bathroom facilities. No other schools in the district at the high school level have this kind of inequity for facilities of locker rooms and restrooms, which is in a direct violation of Title IX. And the pictures, you will clearly see that is the case. The next area I have of concern is the actual condition of our field. The field has been undermined by gopher activity. It's not flat, so being an undulating surface presents risk of ankle injuries and others. Somehow a plastic access cover was placed in my right field. Completely unacceptable. If a student steps on that they're going to slip and fall because they're wearing cleats. Very unsafe. We have a large hole in our right field foul territory. It's been there for 2 years. And I've asked repeatedly to have these things taken care of to no avail. We have horrible drainage on our field. We have standing water in right field 2 or 3 days after a rain event. There's standing water on our infield as well. And you can see these pictures in pages 24 through 30. And recent rain events washed away. We had, I think it was 20 yards of red cinder was placed on our field. It's gone because of poor drainage. These issues that I've just mentioned about our field are dangerous for our athletes. They're dangerous for our coaches, for spectators that come visit. I just took pictures tonight, the last 2 pages of what our field currently looks like. You'll notice that there are weeds growing everywhere and it's completely inaccessible. And to be honest, the condition reflects our district and it reflects very poorly. And I really am embarrassed sometimes when teams come to visit us and I've seen backyard fields look better than what we have to play with and practice on. So, and I know there's always budgetary concerns just from our presentations tonight, but can you put a price on student safety? Can you afford a potential lawsuit both from Title IX, Americans with Disabilities, or injury from a student? So thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Allen, may I ask you, how long have you been coaching at Mount Diablo High School?
I've been at the high school for 3 years, and I've been coaching there for 3 years. It's my first day there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, I just noticed that, sorry.
I noticed on the last page you have solutions.
Yes, I was trying to keep within my 3-minute time frame, but yes, there are solutions. I've outlined those there really to accommodate all 3 of our concerns of safety, Title IX, and ADA. I would propose that a field be relocated up to, there's a big block of grassy area by our science labs. If you were to look at our overhead view, you would see a big grassy area that would give us equal access to locker rooms that the boys currently have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Christina Merrick?
Hi. Good evening. Good evening. First, I'd like to say congratulations to Dr. Meyer, and we will definitely miss you. My name is Christina Merrick, and this is my 8th year as a credentialed school nurse in Mount Diablo Unified. I'm one of only 14.05 FTE for the entire district. Our current caseload is 1 credentialed school nurse to 2,700 students. My current caseload only allows me 1 day per school, and it has been proposed that our caseloads be lowered to 1 school nurse to 1,250 students, which is absolutely a necessity given the overwhelming need and current liabilities. If I may, as an aside to the budget presentation tonight and the increasing special education costs, an ounce of prevention is definitely worth a pound of cure. And decreasing school nursing caseloads would be able to intervene with students before they're at a grade level 1 year, 2 year, 3 years behind. We've experienced this time and time again that sometimes it's as basic as not being able to see. They don't have reading glasses. They can't hear. And needing hearing aids. So we've caught so many of these cases, and this is after special ed assessments. Timeline has started. They do vision and hearing. You can't see. You're actually blind, partially in one eye. And having surgeries. So we can catch a lot before that child has to be a year or 2 or 3 behind before special ed gets involved, essentially. But as an aside, I want to talk tonight about a young elementary school student at one of my Title I schools. A teacher referred him to me that he wasn't feeling well, and luckily he was in the 20% chance of having a school nurse that day, and I was there. When I saw him, his lips stuck out significantly and unnaturally like this. And you could notice drooling from one side of his mouth. I asked him to open his mouth and immediately could see the deep black craters of decay in his mouth. He would have one side of a tooth, then he would have a deep black crater, the hole just gone, and then the other side of the tooth. And this is all over his mouth, many of his teeth. He had so much swelling in his mouth from this decay that saliva was just coming down his face. He says he doesn't like to eat because it hurts, and he would only eat on one side, like this, and applesauce was usually his favorite. When I call home to speak to parents about oral health, asking when the last time their child has been to the dentist, parents have told me that their student has never been to the dentist. Why would they go to the dentist and pay for those teeth to be filled, sealed, capped, pulled? They're just baby teeth. They will fall out anyways. So we take a step back, and I begin to have a different conversation with parents, focusing now on education and how primary or baby teeth come in will affect their permanent teeth. And that at elementary level, they have both baby and permanent teeth. And so if they have decay in those baby teeth, they're also going to get decay in those adult teeth. Some parents realize the importance and make appointments, and some don't, in which case I've had to make several CPS reports for several different students due to oral health neglect in our district. These aren't third world countries. This is a elementary school a mile away. And so this instance was 5 years ago. I brought the student to the principal so she could see the state of the child's mouth and the pain he was in, and I let her know that we need to do something about this. That started a 4-year process of me desperately trying to do what I could to connect our district, with La Clinica to get Wren Avenue Elementary as part of an MOU for dental services with La Clinica. Now, it's the second year running at Wren. La Clinica dentists and hygienists come to the school once a week for 6 to 10 weeks a year and complete dental exams, cleanings, fluoride treatments, x-rays, sealants.
Thank you. Okay, so we have number 2, right, Mary Ann Johnson?
My name's Mary Ann Johnson. I'm just going to continue to talk about oral health. I'm one of the newer school district nurses, but I worked for over 20 years as a pediatric nurse practitioner prior to this. So, just to finish about the La Clinica program, they see about 19 students a day. Parents just sign their consent forms. Parents aren't charged. Parents don't have to take time off of work to make an appointment. The student misses minimal school time, and more importantly, the student gets, in most instances, their first opportunity in having a dental exam. This is huge. As the health of one's mouth affects their overall health and well-being, unfortunately, too many people struggle with oral disease, even though it's almost entirely preventable, and frankly, oral health is a social justice issue. Should we skip? Okay. Those of lower income, racial, and ethnic minorities are more likely to have poor oral health. A full 20% of children aged 5 to 11 have at least one untreated decayed tooth. Among school-aged children, tooth decay is the most common chronic disease, 5 times more prevalent than asthma. In a Los Angeles study, dental problems were responsible for about a third of elementary school absences among children from economically vulnerable families. Children between 5 and 17 years miss nearly 2 million school days each year nationwide due to dental health problems. Toothache leads to school absence, which is a ready indicator of children's health. In the U.S., dental problems accounted for 117,000 hours of school loss per 100,000 children. Because most school dental services operate mainly during school hours, loss of schooling among the poor who have higher cavity rates is high. Children can't sleep, eat, learn, or even play if they're in pain from dental disease. Additionally, gum disease is an infection linked with other chronic diseases, including diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. Even has been linked to Alzheimer's. Cavities can affect a child's speech development, learning ability, attention deficit due to pain, school attendance, social development, and self-esteem. Moreover, many students will purposely try hard not to smile because they're embarrassed, or will cover their face if they accidentally laugh or need to talk in class, so other students did stare at them or make fun of them. The health of your mouth is one of the most visible indicators of economic inequality. Poor oral health can affect adults' job prospects and social lives. It's been reported that most employers make instant judgments based on appearance, including someone's smile and teeth. A 2008 study found that people with missing front teeth were viewed as less intelligent, less desirable, and less trustworthy than people with a healthy smile. Oral health affects how people grow, enjoy life, look, speak, chew, taste food, and socialize, as well as their feelings of social well-being. Keeping people healthy by preventing a disease saves money for family, businesses, and taxpayers. School nurses play an integral role in keeping students healthy and in school. Please share with your bargaining team that these caseloads need to be realistic and safe, because the current caseload is unrealistic, unmanageable, and unsafe. Help us help students. We're desperately trying to help students, but we aren't magicians that can be everywhere and everything at once. We have students who are falling through the cracks left and right, whether it's with their vision needs, as we talked about last time, or the high number of students that don't report having an oral health exam, which is a requirement for ed code. Please lower our caseloads of one school nurse to 1,250 students, maintain our lead position, and include our MOUs that the district has made with Medea regarding nurses into the contract so that students can be safer moving forward. Again, the nurses and your students and the community would be forever grateful for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike Langley?
Dr. Meyer, to put this into context, I first became associated with this school district 57 years ago as an 8th grade student at Loma Vista Intermediate School. I consider this district an integral part of my life. Even after I retired as a teacher, I continue to care about this district. What I'm about to say is not something I say very often, and I say it without reservation. Thank you. You came into a district that was in chaos and that had been torn apart, and many parts of it just thrown away. And you rebuilt this district as an educator as well as an administrator. That's very rare that we have educators who are also very competent administrators. And again, I want to thank you. Now the not so nice part, board. I am charging you with replacing this excellent administrator with somebody who has somewhat the same talent. Previous boards have really screwed up. They've gone with somebody who had a nice pattern, who had a plan that didn't really have anything to do with this district. I've had administrators who wanted to take all the computers in the district and put them in one school so that he could have a magnet school and have many students have no computers at all. We've had some who are experts at cutting. And so as we get to a time when budgets are getting tight again, please do not hire the person who says, I can cut better than anybody in the world. Let's have somebody who can maintain programs, not cut them. We also have had administrators who have gone after every bit of money, no matter whether it fits into the program or not, and then try to fit our education system to meet the budget of this $1 million we get for 2 years, or this one we get to 3, and has had our education, our teachers, our students heads spinning because after the money's gone, they've gone to the next whole program. Let's get somebody who knows what they're doing, who's not using this as a place to polish their resume, and who cares about this district. Sometimes we've hired from within, sometimes we've gotten other people. Sometimes it works to go with a nationwide search. Do your job, include other stakeholders in your search, and please don't hire somebody who thinks they've got all the answers. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's all our public comment. Thank everybody very much for your participation. Okay, so now I think we're at the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved, adopted by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any member of the board and acted upon separately. So I've asked the board has some items they'd like to consider separately. Ms. Mason still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. No?
Madam President, I move that the board approve item 13.1, the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Okay, great. We have first and second. We need to do a voice vote. So, Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Mason? Did you, Ms. Mason? On the consent agenda? Okay. Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan?
Aye.
And Ms. Durkee votes yes, so that passes 5-0-0-0. All right, our next item is communications, district organizations of regular board meetings. A single spokesperson of each recognized district organization may make a brief presentation following the consent agenda. Items are limited to those which are informational. And we have a card from Anita Johnson.
Good evening. First, I want to add to the well-deserved praise that everyone has heaped on Dr. Meyer. She's a truly remarkable human being that has added to the lives of thousands of people. She's made incredible contributions to our district and will be greatly missed. Secondly, President Durkee, you're absolutely correct. We are all victims of the way our society is structured, and especially the lack of funding for education. I want to let everyone know that Senator Skinner announced yesterday SB 37, the corporate fair share for California and Californians, which would significantly improve funding for our schools. I want to encourage everyone who is listening to study the bill, and please contact Senator Glazier or whoever is your senator to encourage him to support SB 37. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We move on to business action, and we have 17.1, presentation by Dr. Dale Scott, DSMC Financial Consultant from FW Unified School District, authorizing the issuance and sale of its general obligations bonds 2018 election. Welcome.
Okay, good. Good evening, and let me add that with me in the audience is Chick Adams from the law firm of Jones Hall, who serves as the district bond counsel, in case there are any legal questions that come up. This presentation will cover the issuance of the first series of bonds, and the successful, congratulations, 2018 bond measure J. Good enough now? 2 copies? And I'll try to be brief, and also please feel free to interrupt with any questions. So if we can turn to page 2 just to refresh ourselves. This is the district's assessed valuation over the last 20 years. The assessed valuation is all of the taxable property in the district, commercial, residential, industrial, etc., etc. This is what the tax levy is placed against in repaying the bonds. You can see the last 6 years has been a remarkable run for this district. The assessed valuation has increased by 30% in 6 years. Now, even though the average for the last 5 years has been almost 7%, as we're going forward and looking at these numbers, I think we have to be careful and not assuming such a high assessed valuation rate. We've assumed that there'll be one more year of 5%, and then we've dropped it down to 3.5%. Now, I think it'll actually be better than that, but it's nice to have that cushion. Turning to page 3, as was mentioned previously, all of the bonds for the 2 previous Measure Cs have been sold, and if we make that assumption regarding assessed valuation growth, that is 5% for the next year, the next 2 years 5%, and then 3.5% thereafter, this is what the estimated tax rates per $100,000 of assessed valuation will look like. This is not having anything to do with Measure J. This is just what is on the rolls now. And you can see something quite remarkable about this, and I think it's a testament to the district and the board that because of your ability to avoid capital appreciation bonds, and because of your ability to keep the debt short, these tax rates are falling. And if assessed valuation goes up faster than we estimate, they'll fall even more. And that's actually quite unusual for school districts around the state. Usually it goes the other direction, the tax rate's rising because of a desire to get the money as quickly as possible, maybe too quickly. So all of these bonds are sold. And now we come to Measure J. And there's two things that happened with Measure J. I'm going to turn to page 4. One is when we were putting together the original estimates for the tax rates prior to the election, you have to make some assumptions about, well, how quickly are you going to spend this money? Because that has to do with how long you're going to amortize it. In the original projections, I went back and looked, we assumed that you were going to have a first series of bonds issued at $50 million. But then when we came back after the election, began to talk to the administration, they said, well, that's going to be rushing it quite a bit for what we have available and ready to go. It looks like it's going to be more like $20 million over the next 2 or 3 years of what we have available. So what I responded was, well, we made some promises, if you will, to the voters about what that tax rate increase will look like. So rather than try and decrease the current tax rate, because we have half as much bonds as we thought we were going to, why don't we keep that tax rate where we promised it, but shorten the term? And so in this case, you can see, by putting on that, I believe it was $14 tax rate marginal increase, that would allow us to amortize that $20 million over 3 years. And you can see what the effect is in the pie chart on the interest. On that $20 million, the interest is negligible, $1 million of interest. In other words, almost every tax dollar that's going to be raised during that 3 years is going to be going to the funding of the projects that are going to be put online. Then the next piece of the puzzle is when we looked at that, we said, okay, if we are going to issue 3-year bonds, is going into the public market really the smartest thing to do? And the public market is where you sell bonds through a competitive sale, you bring in an underwriter. And the reason I bring that up is because those costs for the underwriters, for the credit agencies, for the disclosure councils, those have to be spread over that, amortized over that term of the debt. But if we only have 3 years, it makes it difficult to do. So there's another technique of selling bonds that's called a direct placement. And that's where we take not bids from underwriters that turn around and then resell those bonds to investors. We're taking bids from the actual banks and financial institutions that will hold those. They'll buy them and for their own portfolio. And when we do that through taking bids from them, so on a competitive basis. But when we do that, we don't have to pay rating agency fees, we don't have to pay underwriting fees, we don't have to pay legal disclosure fees. And as you can see in our comparison here on this table on the right, when we add in those fees that we save, and we add in what we think are the lower interest costs compared to current interest costs, that saves another $300,000 in costs by doing that. And that's what you see in the resolution that you'll be voting on at your next meeting. So because of the strong demand for the bonds, the low interest costs, the streamlined credit review process, all of those factors allow us to obtain these funds much less costly than we anticipated, with interest costs dramatically less. As you know, this item is before the board tonight as an information item. Welcome any questions. It will be coming back to the board at your next meeting for adoption on April 22nd. And assuming that occurs, you should have funding towards the end of May 21st. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
In this scenario, would we be looking, according to the chart, would we be looking at 2023 or beyond for the issuance of the other for any future issuance? Would that preclude any issuance prior to then, or can you share those parameters?
Yeah, it's a good question. It does not preclude until 2023. Certainly, if you wanted to do it in the next 6 months, that would make it more difficult. But once we get into a year or two, then there's ways to work around that levy that's already put in place and jump into the next year. So I'm not worried about being flexible for whatever the district needs really starting next year. And we tried to build that into the model.
Related to that, if we're trying to stay under the $100 per 100,000 though, it seems like we really would need to wait.
No, you don't need to wait. I know it looks that way, but it's not quite as arithmetic as it looks, because we can build in, for example, a year where there'll be no payment. You can issue the bonds now, but won't be a payment until after the first year or after the second year. We can build in what's called capitalized interest, meaning you're actually funding some interest in order to get you over that tax rate. So there's various techniques you can use. When you're talking about a couple years, it's not a big issue. When you're talking about 15 or 20 years, that's a big issue. That's a real problem. But for a couple years, I'm not concerned about that.
I'm not sure I agree with you, but we can certainly look at it. I have concerns about ballooning interest.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean, and again, you may recall there was a time when you were looking at pushing it off 4 or 5 years in order, and that's a problem. That becomes a real problem, but it's unlikely that you're going to want the next portion of these funds for at least a year.
I think my question to the superintendent and staff would be the 20 million, how long does that get us through, or when would you foresee additional projects of the remaining 30 million in that scenario?
Well, I know one thing, our operations side of the house, they looked at projects and looked at summer and through the school year work to get an estimate of how much they really had the capacity to support. And so they did come up with this recommendation. I don't know if there's any further comments on that, but that was looking at continuing the practice of working within the summer as much as possible and doing some things during the year. But
Can I add one item before?
Certainly.
I mean, these are great questions, and if this is a concern of the board, there is no problem of saying, okay, then let's make this 4 years instead of 3 years, and push that tax rate in the third and fourth, or even the second and the third and the fourth year down a little bit to allow us to pay that interest if you want to accelerate it. I mean, it's a great question, it's a great call, it's easy to do. If that's a concern, then I think we should build that in, and you'll pay a little bit more in interest now, but I think it's a good guarantee or a good safeguard in case you do want to accelerate.
And it's the benefit of having this for information now at this point, so if you want to consider amendments or ask more questions as well on projects, and we can get some feedback from our departments on why or what possibilities exist.
So I just have a question first about, call it a new method for selling the fund. It's not selling the funds, you called it direct placement. Since this is a new process for us, or a new method, can you provide some insight in regards to the security of the funds? I mean, is it just as reliable for us? The risk, I'm talking about risk.
Right, we're not talking about taking bids from individual investors. We're talking about taking bids from major California commercial banks, for example. Once they give a bid, they've done their own credit analysis of your district. They've decided to put a bid in. There is no essential risk that you won't receive those funds. And if for whatever reason that first bidder decides to turn around and leave, you've got 2 or 3 bidders right behind at almost the same interest rate. So I've never seen it happen in a direct placement where they walk away after they put in a bid. I'm not saying it can't happen, but the level of risk is quite low.
And our current status is relatively good, or
Yes.
extremely good?
I would say somewhere in the middle of those.
But,
Very good next sentence.
you know, our community is very anxious to see these projects, done more quickly than over a period of time. Using this process, how long would it take us to receive all the funds that are available through Measure J?
Well, I would not recommend this process going forward. It only it only works because this is such a small amount in a short period of time. When you get to the next series, and I'm assuming the next series will be much larger, we were originally assuming $50, $60 million, maybe it's $100 million, then we'll go back to the competitive or the negotiated sale process where it's an actual underwriting and the costs are spread along, and it's which you have been through before. So this is just a very peculiar situation because of the short-term nature of the debt and the smaller size of the debt. That's the only reason, and we can save $300,000+.
And to Mr. Lawrence's question, I also understand that there was consideration of the final projects with Measure C. And so those final projects were being completed, and then Measure J was starting up with these first 3 years. So that was part of the consideration.
So this summer is where we're looking at the final projects of Measure C, is that correct?
Yes. As well as other maintenance projects that we have with other maintenance funds. Correct.
But let me add, the schedule of selling these bonds, as long as we can maintain faith with what was told to the voters in terms of the tax rate, the schedule of selling these bonds is, you're driving that car. You make that decision, we want it sooner or later, we want it faster, we work around that. As long as we follow the law and follow what was originally advertised and disclosed to the voters. And this program as it begins, does that. And then the next one, we'll work around it to make it work.
Sounds like what would be helpful before this becomes an action item would be for us to make that connection between what actual projects are planned and the timeline and how that matches up and then when the next needs are. I know we have the facilities master plan results all coming in now, so if we have a good understanding of what 20 million is planned for and then when the next phase is expected, I think that would be helpful.
And we can do that, and I just want to say, is there any other information? Certainly.
I can provide in addition to the 20 million, this 20 million, we also have the 20 million COP that we issued last fall. So that, we're getting ready to start that. And so we have a couple of pots of money. We have Measure C that you approved about 18 million in December. And then we had the other group that you approved back in February of last year. So that altogether we have roughly about 2040, about 65 million. So including this 20 million. That's why we are staggering this out an additional 2 years, because this is going to take us all the way through probably the winter, spring 2020-21. And so by then we'll be positioning ourselves to issue Series B of Measure J. So we just didn't want to have too much cash on hand and not ready to launch projects because, we just were not ready for that. Plus, it would give us time to get that facility master plan done and really think about the next issuance and size it, like Dale said, appropriately to a couple of large projects. So yeah, we have those project lists. So yeah, we'll bring you, once we get that 20 million for Series A, we do have our project list that we're developing. It's primarily technology, so we're just refining that, and you'll get a presentation on what that exactly is.
The other factor for consideration too is John Ferrante's mention of the management, the construction management firm, and whether or not, if staff can effectively manage the $65 million, are we looking at a savings of 8 to 10% for the management fees? And maybe I'm overestimating that, but it is Mr. Ferrante's shaking his head wisely back there. That is another factor. You've given us a lot to think about, and so for some other, my colleagues, they'll understand it quicker than I do, but I promise to give it a thorough study.
We'll prepare some alternative scenarios for you that you can consider at the next, when you take action, and then by then you'll have more information from your business department. It's however you want to put it together and to make it work for the future.
Just speaking for myself, I think we very very well might end up at this proposal, but I would certainly welcome the option of looking at another option.
Yeah, the comparison can be helpful. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So I was thinking maybe we can.
Can I ask one quick question, just sort of on that topic of Measure J, the Oversight Committee application? I just realized I don't know what the deadline is for people to apply. Do you know that?
There isn't necessarily a deadline, but we set a deadline in order to bring it back to the board, make the May meeting. I believe we said somewhere in mid-April, I don't remember off the top of my head, in order to get, but after that, I mean, they continue submitting the applications, you know, just for that cutoff, because we need to have 60 days after certification to get that established, and that would put us right in that timeline.
So we need to fill at least the 7 minimum of the specific required
We do.
positions
We do.
within the
I
60
mean,
days?
We do. It does
And then
sometimes,
additional
yeah.
at-large can go beyond
That's our goal.
that? Okay, so if someone from the public is interested in applying, sooner rather than later is helpful?
Yes, yes, they can apply sooner. Yep. Well, we'll bring them to you guys in May.
Okay.
So.
Claire, you can leave at any time. Love having you here, and I know it's fascinating, but feel free now. I was thinking maybe that we would move up Eagle Peak, because y'all look like you're fading at the front row there. So is that okay if we move that up? So we'll go to 17.3, renewal of charter for Eagle Peak Montessori School and special education facilities and financial MOU.
We do have 2 comments. So we have Michelle Hammonds.
Good evening, President Durkee and Superintendent Dr. Meyer, and the rest of the board, of course. I'm sorry, please excuse my voice tonight. The one night I actually need a voice during the school year, I don't have one, so I apologize. First, I just wanted to follow everybody else's cue and say that when I read the email the other day that came out to staff, I literally screamed in the office, and my office staff was like, "What?" I'm like, "She's leaving." You've been a great partner, and you've really been an inspiration, and you've had an open door every time I've been over here. If I needed to talk to you, you were right there, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. You're the 5th superintendent that I've survived in Mount Diablo in my position at Eagle Peak. And I have to say the relationship has just been amazing, so thank you. In addition to that, I want to say, I think, Linda, I'm going to look real quick. I'm pretty sure you're the only person in this room that was here with Krista when she got the original charter approved.
Mr. Ferranti was here.
Okay, all right, back in March of 2000. Right, so thank you. Okay. But on the board. I was not here. But I do have 2 of our founding teachers here in the front with me, Sybil Buckner and Denise May, who have been there since year 1. So they've been there for all 18 years. Day 1, year 1, where we started with 2 classrooms, 4 teachers, and 60 kids. We're up to 8 classrooms, 16 teachers, and 285 children this year. So thank you so much. You've been a great partner in the climate that we have right now for charter schools. Our relationship is definitely unique, and I want you to know how much we value that and how much we respect that partnership. And we hope that we have been a partner back to you as best we can. We do work with the students at Northgate a lot, which is always great. When she mentioned the senior project, I've had a couple of students who have done that on Montessori education after coming over and working with us, as well as working with keeping the district unified over the past couple of years. So thank you so much for your support, and thank you for letting us do what we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Lacey Wagner. I don't know if I said that right.
That works, I'll take it. Hi, thank you, President Durkee and Dr. Meyer and members of the board. I'm Laura Lissy Wagner. I'm the president of the Eagle Peak Board of Directors. I'm also a history professor at San Francisco State, so I support public education at every level. And I'm the mom of a 7th grader and a 1st grader who go to Eagle Peak. Eagle Peak has been such a wonderful environment for my children, for our family, and for a lot of families in the district. I'm just going to do a lot of echoing, so I want to echo all of the kind words and good feelings that we are giving you for your service. We were all heartbroken to hear it, but we wish you happiness on your new adventure. This process of preparing the renewal packet was a great one for us as a board and as a school, a time for introspection and self-analysis. So I just wanted to come up and thank you for being wonderful partners for the last 5 years. And I hope to be saying I look forward to being wonderful partners for the next 5. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so this is actually on for action, so.
Madam President, I move that the board approve item 17.3, renewal of charter for Eagle Peak Montessori. And then I was hoping to say something before.
Second?
So I just think that you have an exceptional school and an exceptional program, and I think it's been, I think one of the ideas behind charters is that they have a unique educational offering, and you certainly do provide that, and I think it's been a wonderful addition to our community, even to the extent of at one point my wife sent me over to a information night, and so I sat down, and as they were deep diving into teacher retirement plans, I was like, man, this is the most comprehensive parent night, and it actually turned out it was their board meeting. My wife had gotten the wrong nights, but they're incredibly gracious, and I appreciated that. And so I just think this is something that we as a district should be very proud of as well, just the partnership, and I'm very much looking forward to us continuing it for the next 5 years and many more beyond that. So thank you.
Thank you. So, we all know that Mr. Lawrence goes paperless, and so on the agenda there's a list of PDFs. Well, I just wanted to share that the PDFs actually print out in this kind of documentation. And I want to compliment the Eagle Peak group and your board of directors for the comprehensive report that you've prepared. It's a pleasure to read it. It's understandable, and it does provide an excellent overview of your program and your thoroughness and dedication for the instruction of children. The Montessori program is very special indeed, and I'm very proud that you're part of the Mount Diablo School District. Thank you.
So we have a first and a second, and we'll call for the vote. So Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan?
Yes.
And Ms. Durkee votes yes, so thank you very much. Congratulations, 500.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, of course the staff got stuck, right, in other words. We'll go back to 17.2, comprehensive school safety plans. This is for information. Okay. Any other comments or?
I'd like to thank Cambridge, Riverview, and College Park leadership for being here tonight, and they're here in the audience if you have any questions. There they are. And thank you for your time, and we have a principals meeting tomorrow morning, so we'll see you there.
Where they get the big bucks.
I just had one question on this that I've heard come up before, and I know it's a challenge in general with our safety plans. What are we doing for students with disabilities in situations where we say like the plan is to run, for example. So I don't know if anyone wants to give some examples of things that you've thought of to accommodate in those areas.
So I don't mind addressing that.
Come on down.
So I believe that it's practice at most of our sites that teachers who have students with disabilities partner them with either another student or an adult to make sure that they are safely escorted with the rest of the class.
to 17.4 is the adoption of American Sign Language 1, 2, and 3 textbooks. This scan is also on for information, so if anybody have any questions they want to ask at this point?
Thank you for coming.
Come back next time.
Any questions about American Sign Language? I would love, if I could, to please take an opportunity to thank Mr. Stowe and Mr. Heller, who was here earlier. They served on this committee, looking at all of our resources and materials. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. That'll be back again as well. 17.5, resolution updating designation of official representative with California State Association of Counties, CSAC. And this is on for action.
Madam President, I move that the board adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. If there's no other comments or questions, we'll vote. Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Count?
Yes.
And Ms. Durkee votes yes. So that passes 5-0-0-0. Thank you. 17.6 is the Williams Quarterly Report for April 30, 2019. This is also on for action.
Madam President, I would move that the board adopt, or is it that we are ratifying the report as presented?
Okay, we have a second?
I just wanted to say that there is a, under facilities, there is still an outstanding matter. Can any information regarding the status of that be shared?
And regarding the YB High School, yes. I can share that we have, the complaint consisted of the bases at the girls' softball field could not be securely fastened, and we did have a commenter last meeting who the coach who mentioned that, and the outfield has gopher damage. And so I know they have been replacing the anchors, and they have replaced them, but they are still working on the gophers, and they have tractors that have gone out, and they've filled holes on the softball field, scraped the infield and tracks, and removed weeds and replaced cinder. But it continues to be an effort with the gophers. Regarding the second complaint, holes on the softball fields having uneven surfaces. They have built pits and filled them, and the infields and tracks were scraped, weeds were removed, and cinder was replaced. So they are continuing to work on those particular fields, and sounds like, you know, we're going to be continuing to look at fields across the district.
So maybe for more extensive remodel work, right? I mean, yeah.
Yes, and as we start to look at the projects that we have, certainly the ones that have safety issues will be brought to the top.
And it's interesting that there's 2 now girls softball fields that seem to have issues that need attention.
Yes, and often you do see the fields, in particular baseball and softball, and you know, they do tend to. I know we have one of our fields that has turf baseball, but and then one that tends to just really get consistent daily consideration. I think we have, I don't mean to make fun, we have a coach that's practically out there scooting off some of the you know, watching it very carefully. But yes, that is, you know, that is something that we do see. And consistently, there's always that question. You know, we have to look at softball versus baseball, soccer, etc., because they have 2 different fields. Other sports share the gym or share the field, for soccer, boys and girls tennis courts, but this is one that has two separate, so it is something that we're continuing to look at.
Okay, I'm sorry, did we have a second? Did you second? No, I heard it first. Are we doing
I made the motion.
You made the motion. I
Second.
didn't hear a second. Okay, thank you. All right, so no further questions. We'll do a voice vote. So Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan?
Yes.
And Ms. Durkee votes yes, so that passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, 17.7 is the allocation of 2010 Measure C funds for the purchasing warehouse roofing repair project. This is up for action, information and action. We want to see a presentation and seen this before. Yeah. Motion?
Madam President, I move that the board approve item 17.7, allocation of 2010 Measure C funds for the purchasing and warehouse roofing repair project.
Second?
Okay, we have a first and a second. If no other questions or comments, we'll do the vote. Mr. Lawrence?
I vote yes.
Ms. Mason? Ms. Mason? Ms. Mason?
Yes, I'm sorry, I had to unmute my phone, yes?
Okay. Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan? Yes. And Ms. Durkee votes yes. So that was approved 5-0. Thank you. 17.8 is on for action. It's the independent service contract with Goodland Landscape Construction Incorporated for slurry seal project at Mount Apple Elementary School. Do you have any questions or we have a motion?
Madam President, I would move the board approve this contract as presented.
Okay, that's a second.
Second.
All right, we have first and second. There's no other comments or questions. We'll vote. Mr. Lawrence?
I vote yes.
Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan?
Yes.
And Ms. Durkee votes yes, so that is approved 5-0. Thank you. Oh. This is always at the end. Okay, we saw this last meeting. We had, just a reminder for everyone that we met as a governance team in a workshop for a couple of hours. One of the outcomes was to update the governance handbook based on some of the conversation that we had in that meeting. You've received a draft copy of it to review. We had a little bit of discussion last time, and now it's just coming forward for approval. I just add that, as my soapbox thing earlier this evening about working as a team and working to support Dr. Meyer, and for us to be a really effective team is really kind of the root of that discussion and some of the things that are in this handbook. So that's my personal passion about the importance of this. We are simultaneously, we're also continuing to work on, this is something Ms. Mason and I work together on as well, and we're continuing to work on the bylaws because one of the kind of changes to this handbook was to really try to pull up and surface more our board bylaws as really being our governance bylaws, and making sure that we're cognizant of that and really looking at them. So Ms. Mayo has been working very hard on updating the bylaws, so that's still a work in progress. You'll notice the handbook references some of the bylaws just to make sure it comes on our radar more easily. So you'll see that in the handbook. I'm hoping we can approve the handbook tonight, and the bylaws, while they were attached to this agenda, and those are still being updated. And so they'll come back for a future meeting.
I'm about halfway, a little more than halfway through the bylaws.
So thank you for doing that. Okay. Any other?
So I did have one question that I recalled that when Ms. Hanson was on the board, she developed a form for board members to use as a proposed agenda item. And I just wanted to mention that because I know it was used a couple of times, I used it once, and then the question is if we wanted to add it as an item to the handbook so that it's found easily, or if we're no longer using it, if we have to some way formally dispose of it, because Ms. Hanson had indicated that the board adopted it as a form, and I take that to be official form, in February of 2014, but when I looked at the docket, I couldn't find it on the agenda. So perhaps it was just an informal form that we all agreed to, therefore it doesn't have to be decommissioned. So, I don't know.
I would say that matches my recollection, and unless there's something we found to contradict that, I would certainly agree with Mrs. Mayo's assessment.
That
I don't think we actually formally
voted on it. Okay.
passed anything. I think it was done informally, and frankly, I think morphed into, if you had an agenda item, you could either mention it publicly during future agenda items or email the board president and superintendent to request an item, which is what I've
I think
done
it's
for the
that
past few
process
years.
is addressed in the bylaws and in the handbook now.
Right, the specifics of it.
Yeah.
And so it basically just said board members' name, the date they were submitting the request, the meeting date that they would expect it, whether it was to be on for information or action, the subject line of presumably the docket, perhaps, and then a summary of the docket content. It is, as you said, described in the bylaws for information, and now that we are using email more and more, even though this is just 5 years ago, perhaps we are, what shall I say, attentive to assure that all that information is included in the email.
I just hope President Durkee has gotten all the requests I've mailed her. As I go to the post office and after typing them up on my
waiting for that
typewriter.
letter, Brian. I haven't seen it yet.
This is interesting to see, though, as a new member, when I was trying to figure out how one requests things on the agenda. I did read the bylaws that say you need to email, the superintendent and board president, but it didn't specify these items. I wonder if these are helpful for you or not in terms of including the meeting date and information versus action.
I'd like to use my executive authority to decide all that.
So that's not really necessary.
I don't think,
is what
I
you're
mean,
saying?
I actually tried to use the form, I think, once, and it just somehow didn't make it to the right person, or something went awry, so I kind of lost faith in that process. So, I don't know, Ms. Mason, are you listening to this? Do you have any comments about it, or any thoughts you want to weigh in with on that particular piece?
I think I used it when Ms. Hampton was president. I used the form once to fill out a request for an agenda item, but that's not really a big deal to me. I was curious about, at the last meeting, we brought up two issues, one of them being training being required to be president or vice president of the board, and also whether we want to have a censure procedure, and I didn't know if that would be in the handbook, or would that be the new bylaw?
Right, so, yes, it's in the, I think we're looking at the censure in the bylaws, right? That's where we landed. It's actually in Robert's rules, right? I've forgotten.
There's Robert's rules, which is our parliamentary procedure for the board. It does include a process for censure. I think that we need to investigate what other boards may have adopted as bylaws, because the model bylaws from CSBA do not include a censure statement. So,
but in that one change, I'm trying to think, and I'm sorry I didn't bring it with me, but the one change, one of just a couple of minor changes we made from the last time we looked at this is a statement that we do, because it's in our bylaws, so I highlighted that piece of that bylaw in the handbook now that says that we will follow Robert's rules. So kind of almost by default, you could reference back to that, but, and the other one, I just, wasn't sure there was a full agreement on that idea, so I didn't include it, but we can certainly revisit it, right now. Is the notion that you have to have completed, to become president or vice president, you have to have completed the CSBA,
The example that I mentioned was from another school board, and the way they had it written was for to be president, you needed to have completed the CSBA Masters in Governance course, and to be vice president, you just simply needed to be enrolled. And what it is a series of, I believe, 4 courses that you can take in any order over the course of however much time you want.
So I thought it was, I went to a series of 14 meetings, so I'm amazed that they've condensed it down to 4. So although
I completed it, it was at least 10. It could have been 14. And I found when I went through that, it was really very common for other school districts around the state to have that same requirement.
So I guess my comment, I found it very valuable because some of our board members have been educators and very involved in the education system. I was simply a parent volunteer, so that going through the training courses was beneficial for me, and I think it helped improve my understanding of the role of the board, as well as looking at some of the different aspects, including health and safety and finance and human relations, etc. I will say that we've had some excellent board presidents who have not gone through the governance training, and so, you know, I guess while I would champion that everyone should do it, and I think my observation when I was going through the process was that there were entire boards who attended this sessions with the superintendent at the same time. So those boards walked away when they finished the training being very, what shall I say, united in understanding, or having a very common understanding of their role. And they didn't always agree on the subjects, perhaps, or, you know, they had various opinions, but they were much stronger as a team. And even sometimes when a new board member was added to a team that had already went through the governance training, another board member would attend with that individual to help strengthen and show collaboration with the new board member going through the process. So, you know, I think that the training is excellent. I can go either way in proposing it or not proposing it. But it does, we would have to be careful in understanding how the board would consider electing a president if an individual hadn't gone through the process, and whether but was worthy of consideration to be president and vice president.
Yeah, I think
And also, just to clarify for 1 second, it's 5 courses. So I think it's changed over the years. They condensed it down, perhaps. It's a set of 5 courses. So 1 is Foundations of Effective Governance. 2 is Policy and Judicial Review, Student Learning and Achievement. 3 is School Finance. 4 is Human Resources and Collective Bargaining. And 5 is Community Relations, Advocacy, and Governance Integration. So
but I think here's some ands in there.
right,
In
but those are
those titles.
single courses. Well, exactly. They've combined, I think, that information.
I know I attended a 2-day, I don't think it was officially part of the governance series, but I did attend a 2-day thing I found really helpful. But I mean, maybe I'm more of the example. Those things I feel like I already knew, you know, so I guess that's why I was hesitant to, I mean, I think CSBA has a lot of great offerings, and I think I agree with you. I think doing things together is a good idea as well. And I think we should encourage that, strongly, and maybe help facilitate it happening. Like through planning, probably make it a priority that board members have that opportunity and are encouraged, etc. But I guess I just stopped short of wanting to make it an absolute requirement, because kind of to your point that, the board selects the president and vice president, so if someone seems like they're really not up to par in terms of understanding all that, they shouldn't get elected. But that's just, I'm not going to die on this hill. That's my opinion.
Well, I would suggest that we adopt the handbook and then we proceed with looking at the bylaws revisions if we choose to go there. And then we can revisit the addition to the handbook if we determine that that's something that we would like to do.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Okay.
Quiet, Mr.
I was. I just think that I would not be in favor of raising barriers to entry for someone who wanted to serve. I certainly think that we would encourage our board president, as Mrs. Mayo has encouraged me to avail myself of CSBA, but also the scenario where we have a newly elected member who happens to become board president, and I don't think they should be precluded from that. And I think that we also would have to look at what the time, one, I presume there's a cost for CSBA for the Masters in Governance, and so depending on a board member's financial situation, I presume they would pay for that personally, or does the board pay for it? Okay. Well, but still, from a time commitment and things like that. But I would not be, even though I think there are many benefits, I don't think that we should be creating barriers to service.
So what it could be is just encouraging board members to explore this. It looks like each course is 1 day long and $300 each. That's as a new board member, I was offered to attend trainings like this that would be funded by the district, not out of pocket. If board members.
But I kind of like Ms. Mayo's ideas. If we can kind of put it on hold for now, and just approve it as it is written currently, and we can revisit it.
With 2 items possibly.
Yeah, with the bylaws as well. So, okay. All right. So this is up for action. Do we want to have a motion to move forward on approving what we have?
I move that we approve item 17.9, the Board of Education Governance Handbook.
Second?
Okay, first and second, so we'll do a voice vote. Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Mason?
I vote yes, and I'm signing off, guys.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. It's late, I'm sure. Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan?
Yes.
And Ms. Durkee votes yes, so that's approved 5000. Thank you very much.
So I have a question regarding this. In my volunteer work as PTA, when we approve a document that's going to have a life, the question is, where is it going to live? Is it going to live on the website under board education with a link there? It's a public document, or is it something that we're going to print and hand out to one another? I see Mr. Lawrence laughing at me, but so.
I think definitely the website makes sense if someone would like a printed, bound copy. I kind of like having hard copies. But we may also want to wait till we get the bylaw thing done, because it might actually change a little bit.
So we know where to find it and where to point to people.
That's right.
Yeah, I like the website idea.
Leather bound, autographed by each of you.
Naugahyde.
Okay, so we don't need a meeting extension, and we have